All right, everybody, welcome back to Top Ends with Twins. We are, 2 weeks away from the Premier League coming back. And so, as a special treat to all our listeners out there, we brought on a good friend of the pod, Kyle. Welcome back.
Thank you guys for having me. I'm excited. FPL's
Yeah.
back.
Hey there, Kyle.
Yeah,
FPL's back. We are about a week away, honestly. The deadline is Friday of
I
next
guess
week.
technically you are
Week.
right, Luke. It's a week, not 2 weeks. Yeah.
The countdown on my phone told me.
Just so everybody knows, Luke is literally probably on his 1,000th team right now.
No, I've slowed down. I've slowed down big time. I made a lot to start out with, and now I'm just picking what teams I want to target. So um, there's other work going on, but I'm not drafting teams much.
Yeah. Well, it's exciting. It's an exciting time, though. It's very exciting. It's right back. It felt like the Premier League season just ended, and I wanted to kill Kyle and Luke both for being Man City fans. So we're back already.
Kyle, I don't know about you, but I love our new kits. Like they're so
It's,
nice.
it's just the
I'm probably
worst
gonna buy
fit,
one.
Luke.
Okay. No. I like City's first kit and I like their third kit. But this Bumblebee yellow that they came out with, I'm not a fan
The
of.
stripe, like the stripe.
Yeah, they're
I
wicked.
think I like it. I like it. It reminds me of what Turkish team is it?
Got to story.
Yeah, Galatasaray.
I don't know. I don't know if the colors are right, but yeah, it probably is. But I actually really like it. I think they pretty much nailed all three kits. Like they're all pretty good.
Well, I don't. Honestly, I'm just looking at it right now. I don't love that really.
This might be the only time Paul and I agree all season, but
The
I mean, we can
only
agree
time you
on
all
certain
don't
things.
want to kill each other.
I feel like we always agree on hating United. We agree on
oh yeah.
like some Barca and Real hate too. So like I think we can find some common grounds through hate. Maybe not love, but hate.
I think at this
I,
point,
I can get with
though,
that.
hating United is like kicking a dog who's, fallen over already. Like you kind of feel bad for him at this point, but not really.
Honestly, it's not even that. Like I don't have a good analogy for it, but I really don't think like United deserves everything they've got so far the last like 10 years to me.
Okay.
I
Yeah.
it's just
It's gonna get
I
worse.
agree. I agree with it. And I think I told you guys I sent you guys the clip of City Extra where they took a clip from Mark Goldberg's stream where he was talking
Yeah.
about how it's not fair for City selling Alvarez for 80 million to Atletico. But I think Luke, you found it in the comments, and it's like, their investments in Pogba, Harry Maguire, Anthony, like
Yeah.
it's just
Oh,
they're not hitting on their scouting department, and that's I personally think that they were doing well with Ole at the wheel until they brought
Mm.
in Ronaldo. I think he had finally gotten a vision for the club, and
Yeah.
the players had bought into it, but then he was kind of forced to change because of the whole Ronaldo situation, and
hmm.
I think it did set him back. I was worried about United for a little bit, but we'll see.
Yeah.
I keep thinking that every year coming into it that this could be the year that they turn it around, but it just hasn't happened.
Right. What I think is going to happen is so they brought in a lot of new hires for their executive department, their recruiting. I think that's going to change, and then eventually over time, the club itself, what happens on the pitch is going to improve. But I think it's going to take a couple years for them to really get the team where they want to. Like Lenny Euro, that's a great signing. He's a really good, one of the best young center backs. And they just got really unlucky that he got injured. He's going to be out for, I think, like 6 weeks or something like that, maybe longer.
But Luke, didn't they pay like what, like 4 times what Real wanted to pay, or like 3 times?
It was like double, I think. So Real were willing to go in with like 30 million from what I saw, but they ended up paying over 60, right? But I mean, he's probably just going to end up at Real in the next couple of years after his contract expires. So, Real will get him on a free probably.
We'll see, we'll see, we'll see. But not to harp on United too much, let's go ahead and discuss the topics we're here for, gents. We have points we need to hit, and we're going to get there, and we're going to be efficient about it, okay?
Let's do
Will
it.
we?
We won't. We
Will
won't at
we?
all. We won't. We won't. But first, Kyle, why don't you tell us a little bit about you got the chance to see AC Milan and Barca play. I know that's not Premier League centric, but let's just kind of it's cool to see the game of soccer growing. So tell us a little bit about it.
No, yeah, I had the opportunity and the pleasure to see Milan and Barcelona play at M&T Bank Stadium in Baltimore just this past Tuesday, and
Hmm.
I'll say, I mean, with the World Cup coming to the United States and everything, it was a good turnout. I think the atmosphere was really good, and it's always fun to see high quality football being played, especially here in the States. I was very happy to see that both teams put out essentially their starting lineups. Got to
Hmm.
see got to see Gundogan play, which is a huge thing for me as a City fan. Also got to see Captain America, the LeBron James of soccer, Christian Pulisic, who had a great
That was
game.
a beautiful, beautiful goal.
Yeah,
Beautiful goal. Yeah.
a goal and an assist within the first 20 minutes. And then to round it off, they were tied at full time. So I got to see penalty kicks at the end. So that's always fun. I haven't seen penalty kicks in person before, so
Mhm.
that was really fun. But I definitely will say I was pleasantly surprised by the atmosphere. Very loud, especially for Barcelona, and was also very happy that regardless of the team that they were rooting for, I think almost everyone was clapping for Pulisic when he got subbed off. I think that just shows that people are getting behind this USA team and the baby Eagles. So hopefully that now that Greg's out and we're going to have a change in managerial. I'm excited. I'm just excited for the World Cup and excited to have the opportunities now in the U.S. to watch teams of Milan and Barcelona are huge teams. So it was very nice.
Mhm.
Very excited to be able to see teams like that and hopefully more games like that in the future.
Yeah. Yeah. It's speaking of the managerial position for the USMNT, it has been a roller coaster since Greg was fired, where, you get reports coming out where it's Pochettino they're looking at, that it's or the other
Jurgen
name.
Klopp
Yeah.
starts with
Like
Jurgen
these
and
massive names. And then it's like possibly maybe we're hiring LAFC's coach. Like there's just no middle ground at all in any of the reporting. So who knows where we end up? Vieira was supposed to be one of the favorites. Henri's been thrown out there as well. Who knows where we end up? I don't know. Paul, I'm sure you have plenty of thoughts on this.
Well, I mean, I saw reports today. Like y'all talking about Pochettino, and like apparently Matt Crocker, who is the one that's doing a lot of the interviews in the process, he worked with Pochettino before, I think, at Spurs. So to me, I mean, if he isn't in with Pochettino, that's the gold standard to me right now at this point in time. And apparently, the budget is there for the U.S. to actually really spend on a coach. So that's what they have to do. I mean, we saw what happened in Copa America with the Baby Eagles. Obviously, there were a lot of things that happened that went wrong, but like they didn't have a coach that could adapt to those situations, and that's what we have to have because if we waste 2026 World Cup on US soil after wasting Copa America on US soil, that's a a massive, one of the biggest failures probably in US soccer history.
Yep. Agreed. No doubt about it. No doubt. Yeah.
You got to honestly, you just have to like capitalize on those chances to really just like build the game and put these players in a spotlight where the mainstream American people, American citizens literally will just watch the game, you know?
Mhm.
But
Yeah. Yeah.
I could go
I
on all
agree.
day about US soccer.
Yeah.
Let's slide to FPL because like Luke said, the clock's running down. We only have like what is it, a week and a day before less than that,
Yeah.
essentially before the clock
Mhm.
strikes, and we can't make free FPL decisions anymore. So how do you all want to start? We could start with different team sets and setups that we have,
Yeah, so I think the
ideas.
best the best way to kind of like talk about this is we can start out with the premiums, right? So we've got Holland, Salah, Trent, Son, all these players, right, who are very popular. Wanted to put this out there and kind of see what you all think. Like, let's start out with Holland. Do you think 15 million is too much to pay for Holland?
Yes.
I agree. I
But
think it's
well,
yes. Yeah, I think it's yes.
Okay.
But
All right.
I do like it. I like it because it's breaking the the template teams. People have to decide, do you want to spend 15 million on Holland, who at any given day can give you a hat trick no matter who they're playing against. Um, but as you saw last year, that he could go through a spell where he got injured. So I do like the move on FPL perspective. Uh, it's hard because I do want him in my team, and obviously, as FPL players, we want to get ourselves the best team and the most points as possible. But it does kind of force people to be a little bit more analytical. And then
Mhm.
if you get him, you're passing up on a lot of other premiums, I feel like. So
yeah.
Yeah,
It's
and another thing to consider with the premium discussion, right? If we look at Saka and Foden, it's a great way to kind of look at this discussion of premiums because they've been spending the entire summer playing for England, right? Like they put a lot of minutes into their legs over the summer. I mean, Saka just got back. I think Foden's been back for a couple of days. Probably, I think he came back whenever they're coming back from the US. Um, but like Peppa said, Foden's probably not going to be playing their first game. Maybe get some minutes at some point, but he's going to take his summer game back. And then Arteta today or yesterday was saying Saka is a professional. He will be starting the first game. We'll do everything to make sure he gets there, but he will be playing. So it's tricky because you want to have these premium players in, but with Foden and especially Cole Palmer too, maybe they're not even playing the first week,
did
right?
you
So
all
it has to be factored in. What? Go ahead, Paul.
sorry to interrupt, but did you all see what Arteta did?
nobody do.
Did you all see this on Twitter?
No.
I don't think so.
Oh my God. So there's a report from the Athletic, an article that I don't know which Athletic art writer put it out, but
Actually, I think I do know where you're going with
yeah,
this.
Arteta literally hired a group of pickpockets to go to an Arsenal dinner when they had a team dinner, and they went around and apparently stole items from players. And Arteta after the dinner was like, "You have to be aware of your surroundings," basically. Like he literally hired pickpockets.
That is psycho behavior.
And like I said, this is not like a rando on Twitter reporting. This was an athletic writer that was like, yeah, this like legitimately happened, and Arteta did this
I,
to like, teach a lesson to the
I
Arsenal
guarantee
player.
Arteta is like target the academy players, teach them a lesson.
Dude, he's a degenerate. He really is. But look, go ahead with your point. I know I distracted, but that it's just so like honestly, the culture of football is so funny, and Arteta just fits so well with like the like evil villain, like crazy
He
maniacal
does. He would make a great James Bond villain. He would be perfect for that role. The slick
Yeah.
back hair. Yeah, he'd be good at it. Yeah. So Paul, where do you sit at on the premium perspective? You said you don't think Holland is worth it, but why do you think that?
Well, so I don't think he's worth it, but will he be in my team? There's a good chance that he will. Lately, I've come back around to it, and like I'm navigating more away from teams where it's like with Salah in it to teams with Holland in it. Because I think it's easier to cover yourself against Liverpool than it is City with Holland, if that makes sense.
Hmm. Yeah, no, that makes sense. I think my concern, right, amongst all the premium chat is like Holland and Salah are the ones I'm looking at very closely. And Holland, like there's always this talk in FPL of like trying to cover a player with someone else. Like if you can go cheaper, go cheaper. Hopefully get, the majority of their returns. Holland, I think is gonna be really tough to cover, right? Like KDB, Foden, those a little questionable to start out the season. The
Yeah.
wingers, I don't want to trust at this point, except maybe Oscar Bob at 5 million. If he's starting, he's going to be one of the best players, from an FPL perspective for value wise. Like he's going to be really, and he's looked really
So
good in the preseason.
talented.
Kyle, I'm sure you can confirm this, but in all the preseason matches, he's looked really good. Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah, and I mean we'll get into kind of like differentials and everything later, but really impressed with him. And
Yeah, he is electric with the ball at his feet. But with Holland, I feel like Salah, I feel like I could maybe cover him with other people, right? Like let's say Sabazza, I place in that 10 role that he's played in a couple times in the preseason. I'd be fine with having him instead of Salah. If we know that Jota's playing, right? Like if he's playing
I
in
think
that
he's the
position as
one.
their striker, Jota, he'd be a great way to cover slot because with their slot, he really likes to have his wingers play really wide,
Hmm.
and the slot would be really wide, right? Like the returns wouldn't be nearly the same as with Klopp. So,
Yeah.
um, Salah is someone who's kind of in and out of my drafts, but Holland has been in pretty much every single one I've done.
Yeah. I mean, it is worrying to me thinking about like leaving either of those options out, especially like for their year and year performance. But I mean, if you look at it, I mean, we've talked about this a lot recently, Luke, that like Holland last year, what he underperformed his XG, and the year before he overperformed it, correct? I
Yeah.
I
So
really
Holland,
go
just
ahead.
real quick. So every single year of Holland's career, he has overperformed his XG, right? Like expected goals, he's gone over top of that with the goals that he's gotten. Last year was the only year that he's underperformed his XG. So when you look at that, you think that's an outlier. He was injured for part of the year. Probably that injury was there longer than we knew. And you would kind of expect him to revert back to the mean, per se. But keep going, Paul. Sorry.
Yeah, I just think that if you look at the way, like you were talking about, the way that Liverpool are going to line up with the new manager slot, I think Salah could be less of the focal point of that attack. And if we look at Man City, if we know that Holland's going to be healthy, he's going to be involved with the goals. Like he may not be involved with the build-up play or getting assists, but he's going to score a ton of goals for them if he's healthy and if City's playing well. Which the only thing that worries me about it though is kind of like Pep's comments, and I think City sometimes does come out of the gate kind of slow at the beginning of the season. So
Mm-hmm.
we'll
Yeah.
see. I mean, it would shock me if City isn't already ready to go by match week 5. I know they're going to be really up for that game against Arsenal because they want to send a message early in the season. And as we
Mm-hmm.
saw last year, all those head-to-head matchups matter so much when you're in a title chase. So I don't know.
And it is a big perk too that in game week 5 when Arsenal and Man City play, it is at the Etihad. So that is that's a big advantage to have there too.
Yeah. Were you gonna say, Kyle? Were you
Um,
gonna say something, Kyle? It looked like I may have cut you off a little bit.
no, no, you're good. It's just I agree with everything you guys are saying. And I think this is the hard part about starting out with FPL.
Hmm.
Because I've kind of been the opposite, is that I've had Salah in all my drafts and Holland's kind of been the one who's been in and out. And maybe this is me overthinking the rule changes and everything too, but with 5 rolling transfers this year, it makes it really interesting. So I'm just looking to start the season out. I mean, it's hard because Liverpool does have a new manager, so you don't know how they will line up 100%. But
Hmm.
their first 6 matches are Ipswich, Brentford, United, Nottingham, Bournemouth, and Wolves. So
mm,
5 of
yeah,
those 6 have an FDR of 2, with the exception of Man United at a 3. So to start off the season on paper, Liverpool have a really good run to start. So
Yeah.
they
for
do.
me
Yeah.
to start out, it's hard not to have Salah in my draft with that run of fixtures, considering that if game week 1 against Ipswich, if he gets a hat trick or even 2 goals or a goal and an assist, I feel like people are going to be like, oh shit, here's Liverpool ready this year. They're gonna try and pull him in, and at that point with his price point, it's just going to be too hard too early in the season, and
Yeah.
then maybe
Exactly.
his price
Yeah.
goes up and we create value in our team,
Mhm.
with his price rise and everything. But to your point, Luke, I think you said this earlier in one of our group chats, is that I also feel like I have to have Holland for that same reason because he can go off for anything, and with the 5 rolling transfers this year, it just seems hard not to have him in because I could always take him out, and then you have that money
Right.
just on
Exactly.
the team.
Exactly. And that's the thing about Holland too, right? let's say he gets a hat trick, a brace, another hat trick, first 3 game weeks, he's gonna go up probably 0.5 at least. And at that point, I mean, just getting to that price point alone with that extra 0.5 is going to be so difficult. And with people making moves, well, I mean, in the first couple of weeks, we know that the transfers are just flying around like crazy. Someone tore the brace and everyone goes there immediately. So you have to be really careful with how you're planning out your teams, right? Because this year, amongst the past years we've been doing this, it'll be really easy to get trapped into a team, right? Where say you want a premium, let's say, Spurs have a decent start out to the season. They start out with Leicester away and then Everton at home. Games you would expect them to score goals. Let's say Son gets a brace in the first game of the season against Leicester. People are going to want to have Son, but let's say Holland gets a brace as well. Like you cannot squeeze both of them into your team at the same time. That's just not going to happen. So it's difficult this year with the pricing, as you were talking about, Kyle. It makes it really hard because when you start out with your team, you've got to get it right. Otherwise you're going to be scrambling to make up a lot of ground. So
That's what I don't know if you all feel the same way. I think you all probably do, but like you can build so many better teams without Holland in it. Like he just eats up so much value, and every time I see a team with Holland, I'm like, man, I don't like that team as much as the team where I have like other options compared to Holland as a forward, you know?
Yeah, and Paul, I think you and I were both on that train because my initial first couple drafts did not have Holland in it, but then preseason game against Chelsea, he scores a hat trick, and
Yeah.
you're like, oh, here he goes again, here goes that guy, and
I'm like, fuck me, you know?
and you're
Like,
just that down, that FOMO of not having him in
mhm.
your team and then falling behind right out of the gate with everyone else that has him. It
Right.
it
Yeah.
just
I
it's enough
mean,
to keep you up at night.
guys, it doesn't it kind of feel like a make or break decision for your FPL season? And it's like match week
It's
one.
game
A
week
little
one.
bit, a little
And
bit.
I'm just
But
like, don't let me get
the,
into the bridge. Don't let me fix
oh
it.
God,
Oh
there's a
man.
bridge nearby too, so don't do it, Paul.
Drive
But it's
over it every
crazy.
day.
The thing, the thing about Holland, right? He's currently around 42% owned. Before the Chelsea match, he was under 30% owned. So just that hat trick alone has him going into a lot more teams. But at points last year, he was 90% owned. So let's say Holland does go the first week, gets a brace. It's not going to hurt you the way that it did in the past. That is something else to keep in mind too. Like when you're building these teams, if you love that, three striker front that doesn't include Holland, then you can go there. You just have to have a plan to get him back at some point if you feel like he's going to have a good season. And ultimately, that's what you have to ask yourself: is Holland going to have a good year or not? So,
Who knows?
So I have a question for you guys too. And I mean we've talked about
mhm.
Salah, Holland, as or big name players to be in your team. Is there any premium player that you are absolutely staying away from?
Yes, Cole Palmer.
I,
Yep.
I think I think
I
that's the universal answer.
I will not go there, especially when you have an Nkuku who's about, what is it, 4 million, 4.5 million cheaper.
Yeah.
Like
Yeah.
in my mind, it just Nkuku's looked really good in the preseason. Chelsea have looked very poor, but I also don't know if Cole Palmer is going to be able to replicate what he did last year. He had 7 penalties. I don't think that's going to happen again this year. He's playing in a different system. Nkuku's there, and Paul and I have talked about this. I think Nkuku will almost take away some of his goals a little bit to an extent. So Paul, what do you think? Anyone come to mind for that question?
I said Trent.
Oh, really? Wow. Okay, interesting. Why do you say that?
I mean, I think it's a little bit of the conversation like Kyle said earlier with the changing of the BPS system. Like, there's times where Trent may not be valued as high. Like, he could score a goal and not be on the bonus points if they don't keep a clean sheet. So it's just kind of the balance of that. But also, I just like, I don't know, starting out with Trent last year, I think he was very hit and miss. So I would like to see like I could go to him maybe when I use the build up all my transfers and want to use them later, like maybe like match week 6 around that time. If he's having a really good season, I can move to him eventually. But I think to take that big of a risk with his price value, whenever like to me, the way I want to play the game this year is I don't want like a minimal amount of money in my back line, basically. And he just eats up so much of that price value that I would rather spend it in the midfield or on the forward line.
So something to keep in mind, right, within that discussion of Trent is Slot's team historically have been very good defensively.
Yeah.
That's kind of one of their bread and butters, right?
I mean,
Where I
it
mean
is.
they led the league. Yeah.
I mean, that's possible, but I mean, like, this is an aging Liverpool team too, like, especially in the back. Like, their midfield's younger and their forwards are younger now. Like the back line, I mean, think about it. Like, they're going to start Van Dijk, who's older, Robertson, if he's healthy, who's older, and then also Trent too, who is notoriously not a great defender.
Well,
So,
they might start him in the midfield. It's possible. And then you have Connor Bradley covering, which I would absolutely love. If Connor Bradley becomes an option at 5 million to Liverpool's defense, instantly my team. No question about it.
I mean,
If
I
I know
think,
he's starting,
but look, I think we did see this year whenever Trent, like in the Euros, whenever he played in the midfield, it just didn't work out for England. So I think there's something to be said that Trent in the midfield probably, I don't know. I don't know if he's the best option there, you know?
yeah, no, that's fair.
I can see it. And again, I think a lot of this doubt comes around what's their system going to be, and with a new manager. Because if it was Jurgen Klopp and same old Liverpool, I would have no doubts. Again, with Liverpool's first run of fixtures, I currently do have Trent in my team just because uh, he is a premium for defense and more than I typically would like to spend on a defender. But with him, what's his ownership? It looks like 22%. So it's not super high, and I think a lot of people are driven off by that price. Um, but
Yeah.
there's a lot of potential there. So for me to start off the season, given kind of the constraints with the Holland and Salah and trying to figure that out and not bringing in another. I'm kind of having a different approach this year to not bringing
Yep.
in a second premium midfielder because I think midfield
Mhm.
is really it's kind of what I've always tried to target because they get an extra point for goals and they get those
Yeah.
nice assist points as well. I try and target some premium midfielders and stay away from the back line, but just with that first run of fixtures, that first six, I want to keep them in
Mhm.
to start, and then that way I have some money in the bank. Say a Son does start off really hot, or another midfielder starts up really hot that I could easily get Trent out and free up some funds and not have
Mhm.
any doubt about it. So
Yeah.
but
Makes sense.
I'm with you, Luke, is that I would stay away from Cole Palmer. I see a lot of similarities in him with Bruno Fernandez. That he had a really good season one season. He had a lot of penalty kicks, but he played really well. And
Mhm.
the next season, it can just be a totally different story. And it almost did feel like with Cole Palmer, he had hot and cold streaks kind of during the season. He was typically more on than not, but there were some cold streaks. And if I
Right.
remember correctly, it always seemed that when he was on those cold streaks, he wasn't getting penalty kicks, so it wasn't really boosting his confidence to be involved. So I just for 10 million, he was a great enabler last year, but to be a premium midfielder and to take up that much, I'd stay away.
Yeah. Yeah. That
If he
that's a
drops,
lot.
yeah, if he drops a little bit and he's having a really good season, he might be worth bringing in, but until I
Mhm.
see that, I can't rationalize it
Yeah.
myself.
Who knows what this Chelsea team's going to be this year? Like, literally,
Yeah.
who the hell knows?
Literally, they have like 8 different teams
You know,
of
yeah, it's
players.
gonna be.
Oh my God. They signed two new people today. I need to stop. I could go on for too long.
But the
But
fact that
American Cowboys.
it's crazy,
oh
but
my
the fact
God.
that they're like spending this amount of money building these massive squads, and other teams in the Premier League are selling off their best players just to meet PSR requirements is insane to me. Like
Yeah,
obviously they found a way around it, but like this
yeah.
is not the way the Premier League should be operating. But
I think so. Just to put a bow on this portion of the conversation. Whenever I'm building my team, like I have been pretty steadfast in wanting Holland for, very early on, right? But the second player who's been in almost every single one of my drafts is Son. I feel like his performance in preseason has been really good. We know Spurs are going to be attacking, right? Like Postecoglou is like, let's go out there and score more goals than them, and that's how he wants to play.
mhm.
And I think if Spurs can bring in Solanke, and there are rumors that maybe it's Tony instead now,
Are
if they
there?
can bring in those, go ahead, Paul. What?
I said there are rumors that Tony's going to Spurs.
Yeah. So Bournemouth have a what? So his clause is 60 million pounds, and Spurs may not be wanting to pay that. So they can get Tony for about 30 for almost half. And you
You're
know,
kidding.
there, yeah, the difference in price is pretty stark there. So they might honestly just be trying to get Bournemouth to move off of their asking price and lower it a little bit or give them better terms. So it feels like Solanke is going to be the one, but if Solanke goes there, I'm going to love that Spurs attack. And then there are rumors they might sign Pedro Neto from Wolves. So you could have Solanke up top, Son on the left, in the middle, Kulusevski or Madison, then on the right, Pedro Neto. That's a really good attacking four.
That'd be crazy.
A lot of fun to watch. So Son is someone that I just think is going to be a great asset to have throughout this season, and I think he'll go up in value a lot. So he's someone who's been in my team. He's on pins.
Yeah.
He's not going to go away from him. So I think he's someone that's in a lot of the drafts I'm doing right now.
I think honestly, I really like the Son pick. I would like to have him in my team. I think in my current layout of my team, it's not really possible to have him,
Hmm.
but
Right.
we'll see. I'd love to
Yeah.
have him.
And
No, Son, yeah.
the enabler there for me, the big difference is that I have some cheap midfielders in my team that I kind of believe in, that I think they're gonna go up in value a lot. We've talked about that on the last podcast, and I'll dive into a little more in the next section that we talk. But I do really think that I have to do some things to enable that, right? So I'm making some sacrifices elsewhere to get Son
Yeah. Yeah,
in.
yeah.
But I think maybe this is a good time for us to pivot to the defenders a little bit. We talked about Trent, but I wanted to get your all's thoughts on Guardiola and then Arsenal defense. Where do you all sit on those two topics?
Go ahead, Kyle.
Um,
I'll
cur-
let you speak first.
Currently, I have neither.
Okay. Hmm.
And
I actually in
in
here.
all my drafts, I did have Guardiola in, but ever since I brought in Arnold, I can't fit him in. But to kind of go on Paul's point is that it's really, I'm gonna say this, and I have a $7 million and a $5.5 million defender, but it's really hard to put too much money into your back line given bonus points. And for the Arsenal defense, like last year they scored a lot off of corners, and they scored a lot of goals from their defense. Uh, Gabriel and
Saliba.
yeah, Saliba scored a couple. And they kept a lot of clean sheets. I just their defense is good, but I find it very hard that they're going to replicate that success again, especially the goal scoring success. Um, so for now, I'm sticking with Arnold, and I do have Pedro Porro in my lineup, just because he is attacking. I want to see how he starts the season, and it could be a very easy move off, and I feel like that's not going to be one that hurts me too much. It's kind of it's a chance, but not really a chance because let's see what has he owned? Um,
He's probably what, like 10%, something like that. I don't know.
so let's see.
Well, guys, I honestly I think a great way to describe Pedro Porro as an FPL asset is he's just a massive flirt. Like
He's
the idea of Pedro Porro is so nice and like He seems like he's going to be a great asset and he's going to score bangers all the time. And he will, but he'll do it in the FA Cup or he's going to
Do
do
you,
it
do you
like,
remember, do you remember last year I captained him in like game week 10 or 11? They
yeah.
played Luton. He had two one-on-ones with the keeper, didn't score, and then they conceded a goal in like the like
Oh,
93rd
I remember
minute.
that one. He was like one on
That
one and he had to
was
pass it.
so frustrating because if he scores a goal there, like that would have like primed my season to take off at that point. I was really struggling.
So,
Um,
Paul, just kind of a quick question. Would you say that do you expect Pedro Porro this year to be what Estupinian was last year? Where it was a
good
really
question.
nice thought and he was in a lot of teams, but he's just not going to work out.
I actually, so we talked about this on the last podcast. I think he has the chance to be one of the highest returning defenders in FPL. The reason why I brought up him being a flirt is that I think over the last couple of years he has been that. And this year, he, I feel like this is going to be a much more solid Tottenham team this year. If they can get clean sheets and build more of a solid team out of the back, which I mean, they have a lot of different assets. Like they have a lot of different people they can play in the positions. Just depends on if they can put it together. If they do, Oro has the chance to do what I think we've all thought he can do for the last like year, you know? It's very possible if they put the pieces together, he could be a large part of their success this year.
I think where Spurs get better is like bringing Solanke helps them a lot with holding possession, building up play. They're not getting those counterattacks, but on top of that, their midfield is going to be a lot better too.
Yeah.
Signing Archie Gray, who's a really press resistant midfielder, and then the Danish kid they signed, who's just he's incredible as well. They will be a lot better, I think, than what they had last year. So it might take some time to get to them, but they in the long run should be better.
I will say with Spurs that if Fabrizio tweets out that Solanke is in fact going to Spurs, I think he is going straight
Mhm.
to my team to start the season.
Without a doubt. Yeah.
Yep.
I on our X account, not Twitter, I was saying that I think that he could score 20 goals at Spurs pretty easily. I would not be surprised. And I got a lot of pushback on that. I was kind of surprised, but I feel like it's self-evident that Solanke is a great choice to have in your team if he's at Spurs. They're going to score a lot of goals, and so will
Yeah.
he.
Yeah, I think that's a really good shout. Like I agree with that completely. The
Mhm.
what was I gonna say? Yeah.
What, Paul? What are your thoughts on Arsenal defense, Paul?
Um, I think it's a lot more difficult to get into the Arsenal defense this year because of the price points and everything. But I also do think Arsenal's defense could be better this year than they were last year. I think you have
Because
more.
of Calafiori and
I
Timber.
think I think Calafiori and Timber both. I think Arteta is going to basically use them on a match to match basis, basically on what he needs and wants out of a match. And they're both going to offer different things that bring up different issues for other teams. And Calafiori is, I think he's a big presence too. I think the set pieces, honestly, I would love to see Arsenal score more open play goals this year rather than just relying on set pieces. But I mean, I think there's a chance this year they could dominate on set pieces again too, you know. So if that's the case, you want people with height, with physicality, and it's going to be those Arsenal defenders. But I still do think Ben White is the best of all the pick.
Right. I was going to make that point too with Arsenal. I feel like the three spots I would go for their defense would be Ben White, if you can get to that price point. The extra point five is can kind of be a lot, honest, with how players are priced this year. Top of that, I think that Gabriel could possibly be rotated a little bit. Calafiori, he has played left center back in the past.
Yeah.
And Arteta randomly benched Gabriel last year for, tactical reasons.
That was
I
when
think
you
he's
owned him,
frustrated with
Luke.
something. What?
That was when you owned Gabriel.
Yeah, yeah, that was shit. Thanks, Arteta. That's why I remember.
Oh,
Uh,
Kyle, you look
but
like you were going to
so
say something. Or like, were you done?
I was just gonna say the three assets I would go is Ben White, Saliba, because he's not going to be rotated, and then Raya. Those would be the three that I would somewhat consider for
Yeah,
Arsenal defense.
that's exactly what I was going to say. I would think my route to their defense would be Raya. Um,
Mhm. Yeah.
Because again, I'm not sold that they're going to have the attacking return to their defense. So Raya at what is he 5.5?
Mhm.
He would be a good way into and a cheaper way because, like
Yeah.
Paul said,
Yeah.
they're just all priced really high this year that
Mhm.
Mhm.
it's hard to fit them in. But 5.5 for your goalkeeper, and I feel like if you did have Raya, it would be a pretty easy set and forget. You wouldn't really have to rotate your keeper other than Europe and midweek fixtures that they would,
Yeah.
and that's not to start the season. So
Yeah.
Yeah.
I mean, it does really basically last year the winner of our league took off basically around the time where he invested in double Arsenal defense. And I think this year you're going to see it's going to be really hard to have two Arsenal defenders.
Yeah, it will be.
They're looking dejected already on the pod, but I do think you'll see it's difficult to do that this year. We'll see where it goes. Gents, would you like to move on? Do you anything to add to that right before we move on?
No, I think, final point on defenders, there's lots of really good 4.5 mil defenders out there, and some good 4 mil as well, to kind of enable a lot in your team. We don't have to dive into them because it just kind of depends on personal preference at this point and, the runs that they have. So, be looking in that 4.5 bracket. I think there's a lot of gems in there that could return nicely for everyone.
Let's go ahead and talk about some differentials that we all kind of want to target this year, which Luke, you look pretty excited. Do you want to start that out for us?
I'll start out with a couple. So I
Do
mentioned
one,
them
do
earlier.
one, do one, and then we'll all do one. Only
Fine, I have to pick one then. Okay, the first one I talk about is ESR,
ah,
making them even worse than the Fulham. He is, I made this prediction on the last pod. I'm going to say it again. He's at 5.5 right now. I could see him being at 6.5 by Christmas, maybe even before then. He's already got a goal with Fulham in one of their preseason friendlies. We know he's a very creative, attacking-minded player, and he's going to be in great positions. I think Marco Silva is going to put him in a place to succeed. And I love the potential of him linking up with Muniz. I think Anthony Robinson can be a great partnership on the left with him. And yeah, I ESR has weirdly kind of been locked into my team for a little while now. So even when he scored that goal, I was like, no, don't do that because his ownership is just going
no.
to go off from there. So yeah, but ESR is mine. I'll pass it over to Paul or Kyle for you guys to share yours.
Go ahead, Kyle.
I think you guys will know mine.
Oscar
Oscar
Bob.
Bob.
Oscar. Yeah.
And and I'm just baffled that he is currently still at 1.3 with the news that Alvarez is leaving. That
Mhm.
I think Bob will be Holland's backup this season. He played alongside him all preseason is the way that they kind of lined up. And he can play that false nine that Phil Foden played
Mhm.
2 years ago. So at 5 million to start the season, we touched on it earlier that a lot of these City players didn't come back until this week. And they do have the Community Shield this weekend, so we'll get a little sight of these the City and United teams before we have to make a decision. But at 5 million to start the season with Alvarez gone, Bob's been playing all the preseason games. He's just a really good differential, and I think he could honestly this year, depending on how the season goes for him, and then with City, if there are injuries or if he just starts playing well, he could be like a Cole Palmer type player. I mean, I could see him consistently getting a goal or an assist and just being in everyone's team by mid-season. If he's able to not lock down a
Mhm.
spot, that he would be a really good player to get in your team, consistently just get you 5, 6 points. Maybe not get you bonus
Yeah.
points, but he could get you
Mhm.
like easily 5 or 6 points a game. And he's just kind of in your lineup as a great enabler where he's gonna get you points, but he might blow up one week and go off for a couple goals, or there might be some weeks, but just with Alvarez leaving, it leaves a hole, and I think Oscar Bob is going to at least get the opportunity to fill it. So
Yeah, I
Yeah.
totally agree,
We
Kyle. I
are
think, go
thinking
ahead.
the same thing, Kyle. Yep.
I mean,
Go
like if
ahead,
we
Paul.
think about last year, like the appearance he made against Newcastle, right, where he subbed on. Now like, I mean, I think that was a brief little glimpse. So just to me, the question about him is like, where is he going to play in this Man City team? Like, what positions is he going to occupy? I just personally would like to see it first, but honestly, like, you don't have to see it first for him to be 5 million. Like that,
Exactly.
that's a good
Exactly.
flyer to take,
That's the
honestly.
thing. That's the
it's a
thing.
really good risk to take, especially 5 million to get into this Man City attack. He's not really a midfielder. He is an attacker, so he would get that extra bonus point if he does score a goal. And to your point, Paul, is that yeah, you just kind of have to see how City line up, because is Grealish going to have a breakout season? Because if so, Grealish is going to be nailed on the left, and
Needs it.
Yep.
then you have Doku, and now you have Savio, which I'm not sold on Savio, because we've seen with these City players that they do take a little bit of time to adjust into this squad. I think Doku has been the quickest adjustment, and I think he just brought a different dynamic. And his final pass needed to improve, but he's been doing that really really well to start. And
Yeah.
with Oscar
Hmm.
Bob coming up through the academy, he made some big appearances last year, like you said, Newcastle. He did play in some Champions League games, so I don't think the opportunity will necessarily get to him. But for 5 million to get into this Man City team, it's a risk that I'm willing to take, and also could pay
Yeah.
off
Hmm.
tremendously to get into this Man City team and enable and free up funds. It's
Yeah.
hard to pass up on.
I, I think I also the only thing that I like I to be very transparent, I've considered Oscar Bob for a lot of my teams because of his price point, right? And the potential of him playing in that city attack. My concern though is Bernardo Silva. Because I know Pep loves to play him like kind of like a right winger kind of and burden him a little bit, like put him wherever he can. And I worry about Oscar Bob being able to take his spot in the squad. And I think that's kind of what he'd have to do on a week in, week out basis. So, but to start out the season for the first 2, 3 weeks, I think he will probably be starting, probably playing like that right wing role a little bit. And I could see him returning multiple times. So for 5 million, that's a great price point. Paul, pass it over to you though. What enabler is kind of on your mind? What are you thinking?
So this is going to be shocking to most people, but I'm going to throw out another Fulham differential. And I'm not even really leading with my heart here. We're going with Jedi Robinson. I think he's a very, what's that face for, Luke?
Okay, I thought he was higher owned, but he's 6% owned, so he's still very much so a
He's
differential.
below 10%, which is a differential. So,
Yeah,
but
he is.
I just think the way he plays on that left side for Fulham, and I think Fulham could have a good year. I mean, you kind of saw last year towards tail end of their season, they really picked up the pace a little bit and like put it together more so. And I mean, you add
Yeah,
ESR, you add, I think they've had a couple more transfers this year, but I mean, they did lose João Paulinho, which is going to be a big one for them because he did so many things and covered so many holes. So it could be a bit of a risk to go there, but like I don't know. I think adding ESR, this team's gonna be more attacking. Jedi is basically play. He basically sometimes plays as a winger for Fulham, and I mean that's
mhm.
pretty rare to get out of a defender. He's gonna be involved with. I mean, I wouldn't expect goals, but assists, I think there's a good chance. And at
Yeah,
4.5, that's a good price
mhm.
point to enter on that.
Yeah, he is. He is. I think Fulham just signed a new center back as well too. They have to replace Tossin, who decided to go to Chelsea, which makes so much sense because they only have like 10 center backs ahead of them. But
Yeah,
yeah, I like that shot. Robinson, someone who's been in a lot of my teams. And he was the one who assisted ESR in his goal. So
yeah.
The
yeah.
the thing I do like about Robinson is at a 4.5, he almost feels like a guaranteed starter too. That
Mhm.
you don't have
Yeah.
to worry if he's going to get rotated or not. He's going to play. If he's healthy, he's going to play.
And
So
it's
that's nice to have in a defender, especially a 4.5 million defender because you always worry
Yeah.
at that price point, is there going to be rotation? But I don't see that being an issue with him.
Mm-mm.
Mhm. Yeah.
Honest.
No, I agree with that. I agree. Another differential that I'm thinking about,
I
and
knew
you
you were
all
gonna throw out another
can,
one,
you
Luke.
can tell me if I'm crazy. Maybe I am. I probably am crazy. I think Morgan Rogers with Aston Villa could be a great asset. So he's a midfielder priced at 5 million. We just saw Diaby leave, so there's an open spot in the attacking front. It looks like he's going to play in like a little kind of like just below Ollie Watkins kind of role where he's facilitating the play a lot. He's really creative attacking. But in their last preseason, he's already scored 2 or 3 goals in preseason. Their last match, he scored an absolutely worldy, those called barely offsides retroactively. He got an assist and should have had another goal because he had another one-on-one with the keeper. So Morgan Rogers is someone that I'm keeping an eye on. My question to you all, though, is it insane to have 3 midfielders that are under the price of 5.5? Is that just absolutely crazy?
I mean, it depends on your perspective. I mean, I think this is what we were talking about earlier. Like, however you want to line your team up, like if that enables you to have Salah and Holland and like Trent, and you want to play the game in premiums, yeah, it makes sense to me. But like, if you want to have a more balanced team, I would probably not advise that. But like I said, this is what we always talk about. It's your game, and you can play it however you want, Luke. You know?
Hmm.
What do you think, Kyle?
Um, I would say yes. It's hard for me, and I touched on it earlier. Just the amount of points that I feel like come from midfield, it's just really hard and it could pay off really well if they do return, and that's the game that we all play. It's how do you budget and how do you find these players that are going to return at 5.5? There's very few that are going to be consistently return. So if you catch on a couple of them, if you catch on like one, say Smith Rowe takes off,
Right,
then
exactly.
having three at 5.5 doesn't look too bad because one of them has paid off. Two of them you can swap in and out, and they're kind of giving you the same results. So I personally wouldn't do it. I would rather sacrifice an attacker for it, but it's not insane to me. I just personally I wouldn't start the season that way just from the way that I view and how I like to play FPL.
Yeah, yeah, I get that. And to be very transparent, 3 is not the way I'm gonna go. I think the idea though of having, someone like weirdly forced assets are really popular on
Like
Twitter,
this is your
FPL.
strongest stance in FPL right now that forced assets are so overvalued.
Don't get it.
I
They were
agree.
horrible last year. Why are they going to be so much better now? There's nothing that's changed. They have a good run of fixtures, but when you really look at the fixtures, yes, on the FDR they're green, but are they really? At
I
the end
think
of the
the
day,
FDR
I don't
lies.
trust. I'm not going to go there. Chris Wood got a goal and 2 assists today. Honestly, I'm happy to see his ownership go up. So
Score those goals, Chris.
maybe, maybe that'll come back to bite me in the ass. But
King Wood.
this
Sorry,
that's
I have to have one unhinged moment on the podcast.
that is a scorching hot take. Um, yeah, I don't know where we go from there.
Well, there was one more thing we wanted to talk about, right, Luke?
Yeah, we just kind of wanted to like get a feel for like, does everyone feel like they're set in their teams? Are they just tinkering around the edges, or where do you feel like you're at with about a week to go?
Go ahead, Kyle. Guest goes first, unless you want me to go.
No, I can go. I'm pretty solid on at least the core of my team. There might be a few loose ends that I'm thinking about, but I think the main core of my team, like a lot of people, is probably set.
Mhm.
But again, it could all change. We do have the community shield, and then as we get closer, then kind of this injury news also starts to play a factor because, we are still a week out. So you're kind of waiting to
Mhm.
see with some of these injuries. So I think the majority of it is pretty good, but as long as there's free transfers, there's always going to be that little voice in your head that tells you
Oh yeah.
tinker with it while
Yeah.
you can.
The intrusive thoughts usually win with
Yeah.
free transfers.
Yep. And
Yeah.
then, knowing me, I'm going to transfer out someone and they're going to score a hat trick in game week 1, and I'll just be unmotivated for the entire season.
Well,
Yeah.
Jens, we
Yeah.
know that I will have probably 150 points on my bench the first week, so
Yeah. Paul, how
I
about
might as
you
well
like
have a bench boost.
tweet out to all of our followers who's on your bench so we can just give them the best players.
Honestly, we should do that segment this year just to kind of see how it goes.
Yeah. Yeah.
But
That maybe what you do, Paul, is make sure you build a bench of all cheap as possible so you don't have the choice. So in the first place, you have your starting 11, not question every week, and you just go with your starting
No
11.
rotation.
Yeah.
that doesn't play out well with my plan of like building those transfers up, to get the 5 transfers. But like if I'll consider it for you.
For your overall well-being, it might be better.
For the content.
Maybe.
Yeah,
Maybe. But
I
Luke,
don't
tell us kind of a little bit about your team. What you think? Are you like solidified in what you have right now, or
know. I think I'm in a good place with my team. Like I really like about 3 drafts that I have right now. Um, going from out of the many that I've done. Um,
he's
but
he's filtered out the 1,000 drafts and down to 3.
yeah,
Yeah.
it's been a strenuous process. I do feel good about my team though. I think that from here for about a week from the week out point, everything's gonna be. I'll kind of play around the edges with a couple players here and there, but I'm pretty set on who my enablers will be. It's just a question of how big I want to go at the back at this point for me, and then what that allows me to do in the midfield. So kind of go from there. But excited for FPL to be back. Really, really excited.
Yeah.
How about you, Paul?
Um, I think I'm kind of like you all. I think I'm kind of whittling it down to the core group that I know that I really want, like the core players that I think are going to be essential to FPL this year. But there's a lot of, I guess you'd say, question marks around some of the players I have on the outside of my team. And I do keep going through teams and like kind of like, oh, this is what I'm gonna do now. This is what I'm gonna do now. But I think the main thing that I need to figure out is exactly how I want to play FPL this year. And I think I have that idea, and from there I'll be able to like pick a team that I really want to go with, if that makes sense.
Yep. Yeah, no, that makes sense. Kind of pick, how you want to play, and then from there you can help draft your team that way. So yeah, I think that's a good way to do it, right? Have like your methodology established before you go about picking players. That's a good
Yeah.
idea.
Also, guys, I
Mhm.
just want to say I think I was on my best behavior today. I kind of took like my Arsenal hat and put it to the side and just let Kyle talk about City, let Luke talk about City. I conversed about City, no F-bombs, nothing bad. So I'm kind of proud of myself, not gonna lie.
It's okay, Paul. You've been an Arsenal fan for a year, so we get it. We get it.
I almost said, oh,
Okay, to get you off the topic, just one last question. This is more of a fantasy question. Has with the introduction of it, have you guys been sold on the fantasy challenge aspect of FPL? Are you guys going to be participating to start and kind of see what happens, or just
Yeah, I personally will, right? I like the changes they made where I think the first couple of weeks are like 5-a-side is how they're doing it. And then you can have leagues associated with it. They have overall score, they're tracking that. And I think they have like badges or achievements you can get, which is kind of cool. I like that gamification of it a little bit. I think it's smart. But yeah, I'll keep up with it. I'm not going to invest a lot of time. What I'll do for that, right, is I will just Paul's holding up his phone showing FPL challenge. Um, I'll just kind of casually do it on the side, like go for, crazy players that I wouldn't bring into my normal team. So,
Oh,
yeah.
guys, before we go, what do you all think the mystery chip is we're gonna use in January?
Oh, I don't know. It could be like limitless transfers, not limitless, limitless budget, where you can just bring in as many players you want, regardless of the budget for that 1 week, and then your team reverts back to that. It's kind of popular in like Euro fantasy and then in Champions League. So maybe something like that. I don't think they're gonna do anything too crazy.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I don't know. I don't have thoughts about that. I was just curious.
Yeah, something that they could do, and I don't know how it would really work, but maybe like a 1 week like discount where like, maybe like for 1 week everyone drops like 0.5 and that's the week that you have to make that transfer and then they all jump back up. So it'll be interesting to see what they do, but I think
I really
leaks
like that.
will
That's a
come
great
out.
idea.
Yeah, leaks will come out as we get closer. So it's hard because you kind of want to plan for it, but
Yeah,
at the same time you can't. So
you literally can't.
There's just
But
nothing we can do at this point.
yeah,
Um,
I think
Any closing thoughts from you, Kyle?
we're back. Just enjoy it and play the game how you want. Don't don't let it ruin your life. It is a game. It's supposed to be fun. It's supposed to get us to watch Premier League. Um, Paul, don't jump off the bridge.
I do drive
Spoken,
around it every day.
spoken like a true FPL veteran there. He's been in the trenches.
Guys, if I made it through last year, my rank dropped from like 100K to like 1.5 million within 3 game weeks. If I can survive that, this year's
It's
smooth
so
sailing.
funny. It is so funny because we literally just flip spots in the span of like 3 weeks, where I went from like 1.5 million to down to like 200K by the end of the year. And it was funny because I was on the rise and Paul was deteriorating, and the vibes were very different. So,
I'll never forget the last day when Arsenal needed City to lose, and Luke had fucking Phil Foden in his team, and I'm
I had
sitting
him
there
captain. I had him captain.
taking
The
like
first F bomb talking about City.
I am sitting there just like it's gonna be okay, it's gonna be fine, and Luke jumps up yelling and screaming after Foden's. I've never been as close to punching Luke in our adult lives.
I will say that goal was a banger too, so it kind of came out of nowhere. So that's probably a portion of why I reacted like that. But I saw the FPL points going into my team,
It's
and I
water
knew it
under
was
the bridge. Like this year, whenever Luke is 100 points behind me in FPL, I'm not gonna let him forget it. So it's fine.
okay. All right. Yep. You got it. Paul, any closing thoughts for listeners outside of
Um,
your hand actions right now?
Nothing at all. Kind of like I don't know. I feel like it's the same point I always reiterate, but like Kyle said, it's a game. We want to have fun with it. But this is honestly to me one of the funnest times to play FPL when you have an unlimited ability to kind of do what you want, decide how you want to play the game. And this is the time really to set yourself up for success for the whole season because, like I said, you don't have Holland for match week 1 and he scores 4 goals. It's going to feel like the end of the season, which it technically is not. It's 1 game week. But like I think we all just need to be very practical and really plan out exactly the decisions we're making and have a thought process behind them, you know?
Yep. Yeah, I think that's great advice from you and from Kyle. FPL can be a difficult game to play sometimes, and as we talked about with the prices this season, it's hard to build a team. There's no team that really kind of is clearly the best. Kind of depends on personal
It's great
preference
though.
and how you want to build your team. So, if anyone out there needs feedback on their team, please feel free to reach out to us on Twitter. It's the best place to reach out to us. But thank you all so much for joining us for the pod today. Kyle, thank you for joining us. Really appreciate you being on with us. And thanks everyone. That'll be it.
We'll see you guys soon.
Thanks.